Welcome to Storied Audio. At 26, Claire's life had become painfully predictable. She woke up at 6, made coffee, went to work, came home to her small apartment, and spent her evenings with a book or old movies. A year ago, she had been planning a future with her boyfriend, Ethan. They had talked about marriage, about buying a little house someday. Then, suddenly, he told her he had fallen in love with someone else. Her heart hadn't just broken, it had shattered. Since then, she hadn't gone on a single date. Love was dangerous. Loneliness was safer. The one thing she did have was her job. She worked as an executive assistant for Margaret Whitmore, the company's vice president. Margaret was in her early 50s and had a reputation that made people nervous. She was strict, demanding, and expected perfection. Claire admired her. Margaret had built her career from nothing. She was elegant, confident, and never seemed to need anyone. That's who Claire wanted to become. Strong. Untouchable. One afternoon, Margaret called her office. "Claire, bring me the quarterly report when it's finished." "Of course." A few minutes later, report in hand, Claire walked toward her boss's office. As she reached the door, she stopped. Margaret was laughing. Claire had worked for her for 2 years and had never once heard her laugh. Curious, she knocked softly and opened the door. What she saw nearly made her drop the report. Margaret was sitting at the small table near the window eating lunch. Across from her sat a man around 30. He had dark hair, warm brown eyes, and an easy smile that made him look like he belonged on a magazine cover. They were both laughing. Margaret looked up. "Ah, Claire. Come in." Claire handed her the report. "Thank you." Margaret glanced toward the man. "I'd like you to meet my son, Daniel." He stood. "Nice to meet you, Claire," and held out his hand. The moment their fingers touched, she felt something strange flutter inside her chest. He smiled. She blushed. To her horror, he seemed to blush too. Margaret's eyes narrowed slightly. Interesting. She noticed everything. After a few polite words, Claire escaped the office. She sat at her desk, heart pounding. What on earth was wrong with her? She hadn't reacted to a man like that in over a year. That evening, she was curled up on her couch when her phone chimed. An email from Margaret. She opened it. "This may be crossing a professional boundary, but my son informed me that he found you very interesting. He is single. If want to get to know him, here is his number." Below the message was a phone number. Claire stared at it. Her pulse raced. After 30 minutes of pacing, she picked up her phone. She called. "Hello." His voice made her smile. "Hi, it's Claire." "Claire," he said immediately. "I was hoping you'd call." They talked for 3 hours. About favorite books, bad movies, childhood memories, dream vacations. By the end of the conversation, Claire was laughing so hard her cheeks hurt. The following weekend, Daniel came back to town and took her to dinner. Then again the next weekend. And the weekend after that. Soon, Friday became her favorite day. Margaret noticed. She also noticed how much happier Claire looked. So she began letting her leave work an hour early every Friday. "I suppose I can survive without you for a little while," she'd say. Claire knew exactly why, and she was grateful. Months passed. She and Daniel fell completely in love. One evening, they were walking through the park, and he stopped. "I've been offered a position here in the city." Claire's eyes widened. "You'd move here? If you'll have me." She laughed and threw her arms around him. But 2 weeks later, trouble arrived. Daniel's company suddenly withdrew the offer. The position ended. He would have to remain in his hometown 3 hours away. "I don't know what to do," he admitted one night. "I don't want to lose you." Fear gripped Claire's heart. Long distance. She had already lost one man she loved. What if it happened again? Their phone calls became quieter. Their weekends felt too short. One Friday evening, Daniel didn't come. Instead, he called. "I'm sorry. I have to work." She tried to sound understanding, but when she hung up, she cried. For the first time in months, she wondered if she'd been foolish enough to trust love again. The next morning, Margaret found her in the office. "You've been crying." "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar." Claire sighed and told her everything. Margaret listened. Then she smiled. "Would you like some advice?" Claire nodded. "My late husband and I spent 3 years living in different cities while I built my career." Claire blinked. "You were married?" Margaret laughed. "Yes. Contrary to popular belief, I wasn't born old and grumpy." Claire laughed. If a relationship is worth having, Margaret said softly, it's worth fighting for. That evening, Daniel arrived unexpectedly at her apartment. I couldn't stay away. She threw her arms around him. I was afraid, she whispered. So was I. He pulled back. Claire, I love you. 3 hours isn't enough to end this. Tears filled her eyes. I love you too. 2 months later, Daniel called her with exciting news. I found another job. In the city? Yes. She screamed so loudly he laughed. The following weekend they began apartment hunting. After seeing several places, they found one with large windows and a tiny balcony. Claire loved it immediately. Daniel looked around. I think this is the one. She smiled. I do too. He became strangely nervous. He took her hand. What if you moved in with me? Her heart nearly stopped. She had secretly hoped he would ask. You want that? I don't want to spend another minute apart from you. Tears filled her eyes. Yes. He grinned. Yes. He wrapped his arms around her tightly. A month later, they moved in together. Boxes were everywhere. The kitchen was a disaster. Neither of them could find the coffee maker. And they had never been happier. That Friday, Margaret came over for dinner. She looked around their apartment and smiled. You know, she said, I should take credit for this. Daniel laughed. You absolutely do. Claire smiled at the woman she had once thought was untouchable. She wasn't just a strict boss. She was a mother who had seen 2 lonely people and given fate a little push. Margaret raised her glass. To unexpected love. Claire looked at Daniel, the man who had made her believe in love again, the man who had healed a broken heart. She lifted her glass and smiled. Subscribe to the channel for more audio stories.